It's been almost 8 months since Survivor Rock Creek concluded, where Brandon took home the title. I'm joined today with Brandon.
Hi.
And Jordan, fourth place runner-up. Welcome, guys. First off, congratulations, Brandon, on winning the season. So, how does it feel now that you've watched the whole season and you've won the crown? You're the sole survivor of Rock Creek. How does it feel?
It feels pretty good. I loved watching the season because some people are like, "Why would you watch it? You lived it and you know what happens." But I was like I don't know what other people said about me. First episode, I was almost gone because Luke and Grant wanted me out, and Paris wanted me out. So I was almost gone, and so then I ended up going on to win.
So coming into the game, what was your strategy? You know, you're a Survivor fan. What was kind of your expectations of how you wanted to play the game?
So I came into the game and I talked with my brother about it before coming on here, and I was like, should I make an alliance quickly or something? I was like, should I have people come to me rather than make me seem desperate? And then I kind of thought about that, and I thought maybe I shouldn't start an alliance quick, but then Hunter, when him and I just walked off, were just like, yeah, final two, this is obvious. And so from there on, that was just what I had went with.
Now on the flip side, Jordan, you had never really been a fan of Survivor or whatnot. What was your expectations or strategy coming into a game like this?
I tried not to have a clear-cut game plan and play it, in the present, play it round by round, and just try to advance every round.
Alright, so let's go to the final tribal council. So the 5-2 vote was finally broken in Hyco Reality. Survivor was a 4-3 vote. How did you feel going into tribal council?
I felt good going into tribal council. I thought it was going to be probably a 5-2 vote that time as well. But then after some of the questions, Garrett had some loaded questions in there that really... Garrett and Luke, those two had loaded questions against me that cost me a couple votes. But I guess it doesn't even matter if it's 4-3 or 5-2 if I still got it anyway.
So when the jury members were voting, did you still feel like you had it, or was it a little nerve-wracking?
It was a little nerve-wracking when I leaned over and I was like, Austin, hold my hand, and he was like, no. I was like, hold my hand, Austin. So then we held hands. I was like, this could actually be serious, because I figured I had Jordan and Bailey's vote and Hunter's vote, and I was like, so that's 3. And then I was like, I don't know about anybody else, because I was like, maybe I could have Luke, or maybe Bev, since her and I were together for a while. But then when Luke just had a comment for us, and I was like, oh, I've lost Luke. And I was like, I've lost Garrett. And so then, I wasn't sure about Bev or Bryce, but it came down to Bryce.
Indeed. Now, Jordan, you voted for Brandon. What went into your decision to vote for Brandon?
I think a lot of it was Austin and I rivalry through the entire game. Yeah, we had, from the first, few interviews, we both said if we had to get rid of one person, it'd be each other, and it just went through the entire game, which is weird because I didn't have any animosity towards him, but yeah, and a lot of it had to do with that.
So going back and watching the entire season, would you have still voted for Brandon?
Yeah, I think so. It was Bailey and I talked about it a little bit before we voted, and she was kind of hesitant at first because Brandon did kind of backstab us, she felt, by giving Austin his idol, and so she thought that, but I assured her that, Brandon definitely played the better game, and he deserved it.
Luke would have won if he would have got to the finals.
Oh, yeah.
So I agree. I was like, we got to take him out.
Mm-hmm.
We planned on that for a long time.
Yeah.
He was way too smart.
So you already kind of mentioned in the beginning of the game, your relationship with Hunter. Would you say that was definitely your strongest alliance throughout the game?
By far. By far. Until the very end with Austin and I was thinking maybe he could still backstab me at some point, because take out the bigger threat to win the game so then he could take it. But then the whole time with Hunter and him and I were coming up with plans and stuff, and he would always address to me and we would see what each other thought, and I felt safe with him. And then when he was gone, I was like, this is an actual game now. I can't rely on another person as much as I did.
On the flip side, Jordan, who do you think your biggest ally was? Because like you said in the beginning, you didn't really have anyone that you had an alliance with. You kind of said that a lot. Who did you put your trust in the most throughout your time?
Well, I really liked Grant when the tribe switched, but then I quickly lost him as a person to trust. So I got to the merge with no one. It was me and 2 other big factions, and But as the day went on, Bailey and I clicked really well. And then like in between the second and third day, we were up like an hour past everyone else just talking and getting to know each other. And that really helped cement each other's trust, I think.
And well, let's talk about when the two tribes merged. So there was the original, 4 Benai members of you, Luke, Bailey, and Hunter. And then Austin was also kind of on your side, and then you were kind of wishy-washy, and you ended up voting with them and voting out Bryce. What went into that decision to get out Bryce and not stick with, your original Kuna members?
A lot of it was really fast-paced, like trying to, because like both tribes thought I was on both of their sides, and so like I'd go from one group and go to get the other, and it just split like last second. I want to work with the Benai members instead of Kuna.
Alright, well let's talk about some big moments in the game. And I think one big moment for me going through the season is at the final 7 with you teaming up with Luke. What kind of went into that? Because it looked like Luke was on the outside looking in, and then right before Tribal Council, he approached you and Bailey. So just talk a little bit about that, your alliance with Luke as well.
Well, Luke had saved Bailey a few times before the tribe switch or merge, and so she really trusted him, and so I really trust Bailey. So, yeah, that went into a lot of it. And but right before that, it was supposed to be Bailey, myself, Bev, and Austin voting Luke out because we didn't think Luke was gonna crack and go against Brandon and Hunter. So once I found Bailey found that crack and they put me into it, I thought I want to work with them.
And then another big move, I think, post merge was the move of you giving Austin the idol and getting out Luke. Tell me about that. So you won the immunity, so you were safe regardless.
Yeah.
What went into your decision to give that to Austin? Was there hesitation, or did you feel like you had to do it, or?
Like it showed on the show, I was saying people have to come to me, and so I had Jordan come to me once, and I had Austin come to me, and I was figuring I was gonna work with Austin because it was Hunter, Austin, and I when we had our final 3 thing, and so I was like, I'll try and work with this even though I'm in a minority, but we can get out a big power player. So then I gave it to him without like the red wrapping for the Kuna one on it to make it seem like maybe it was his, so that I could still have Jordan and Bailey's trust, just to play that off. And like I read some of the comments and people were like, why did he do that? He should have just made like a big move. And I was like, I was trying to keep both sides happy with me. So. All
right, let's play a little name recognition game where we're just gonna kind of go through the cast and just kind of give me a brief summary of that person and how do you think they played the game or whatnot. So let's start with the first person voted off, Julia.
Julia, she wasn't like super, like, I don't know what the word. She was kind of hesitant about doing stuff, and so, but she was super nice and she was friendly with everybody. It just wasn't her game at all.
And then Jelks, you also never played with Jelks, so what about Jelks, the second person voted off?
Jelks, we always had a weird feeling about Jelks. Like we said, it seemed like he was pessimistic at sometimes, but then in his interviews it looked like he was a little more lively. So I don't know what was up with Jelks at times, but nothing personal. Just. And
then Paris, who also, like you said in the beginning of the game, he was kind of, you guys were kind of skeptical of each other. What went into that? What was up with?
I have no clue, but I just had an eerie, weird feeling that I was like, he could probably play the game. I was like, he seems like he could talk to people and get behind your back and stuff. So. And then now, Skylar, the first person out of the Kuna tribe. What do you think about Skylar?
Kind of distant to the rest of the tribe. I didn't get end up knowing him very well. He's really nice, and when he opened up, he talked a bit. But besides that, he kind of stuck to his own thing. His demise.
Well, then the tribe switch happened, and Jonah was the first person voted off. Talk to me a little bit about Jonah.
Jonah is just as awkward as can be in a game of survival. His thing with Bryce was just the most awkward thing. There were a couple things that he told me that weren't shown in some of his interviews, and it was hilarious. He was hilarious, and so, yeah.
I'd say a comedic relief for the game for us. Yeah. Like Ryan and I and a few others were taking the game, trying to play it really hard, and he really added a good like, flair to the game to, you know, keep it lighthearted a lot of times.
All right, and then we had the double tribal council, and you never got to play with Jenny, but you did early on. And what did you think of Jenny, and especially her playing the game before? Did that affect how you felt about Jenny?
Well, like I knew she was really smart. I knew she was a really dangerous player, and so I wasn't. I don't know. I was kind of. I didn't know how to feel about her going out. Like one part of me was like, well, it's not good for Kuna, and the other part of me was like, well, she's going to be really difficult to get out of the game going down the road.
And then Grant, which you both had a hand in. What was so threatening about Grant?
Everything. He's like I don't know if it like came across, but he's like a really smart guy. He's good with like puzzles, memory. He's strong. He's got the height to him. He's fast. Like physically and mentally, he was great, and socially, he could talk to people. Just an all-around threat.
Jordan?
Exactly what Brand said. That kind of what drew me towards him to want to team up with him, and him getting voted off really, I don't know, mentally changed the game for me, because that made me kind of pissed at Garrett for voting against Grant, and so the fact that I had to make the choice, like, you know, an hour down the road about if I wanted to team up with Garrett, who just voted my like favorite guy of the game out, and or not, and vote, you know, screw him over. That really played a lot of it.
And then obviously we had the merge, and Bryce was the first target, who was also considered a huge threat. What was threatening about Bryce?
Bryce is like the same as Grant, except even better at challenges. Like handball. I'm surprised he didn't win the water one, but then Garrett ended up getting that one, and he was, and everybody like figured that he was like an intimidating physical presence in the game, and so as a physical threat, we're like, we can get him out now so he doesn't keep winning and just get to the end.
And then Garrett followed, like you said. You were upset with Garrett, you voted out Grant, but you know, what went into getting Garrett out at that point in the game?
Garrett was working with Bryce. Bryce was like the powerhouse, and Garrett was like the mastermind of it all. He was the social person, and he threw loaded questions. He would skirt around whatever you were saying. He just knew how to work your mind, and he knew socially what to do and everything.
Yeah, definitely. Like mentally, he's probably the sharpest guy out there. There's no way that you know, you could get around him, or it's just you had to get him out when you did. There's no getting around it.
Now what about Beverly? Because when the tribe switched, it almost seemed like you guys kind of kicked it off. You told her that you had the hidden immunity idol. It almost seemed like there was kind of a connection there, and then she was voted off. Talk to me about your relationship with Beverly.
Well, I was like, because her and I were just looking, and I was just figuring, I was like, in my mind, I was like, Grant, Jordan, and Garrett are going to get together. I know they are, and I need somebody, because I figured Grant was with Luke, and I was with Hunter, and I was like, that split us up. And the tribe switch really worked well, because Grant and Luke were split up, me and Hunter, Jenny and Bev, and Garrett and Bryce, and so it was like, it was just by random great, but I was like, Grant's probably going to go with some of the more dominant people, and so I was like, I've got to find somebody, and so Bev was like, just walking by herself, and I was like, I'll go with Bev, and I was like, hopefully I can work with her and trust her.
Yeah.
Jordan?
Out of all the original Kuna members, she was definitely the one I trusted the most. And it was tough to get rid of her, but had to be done.
All right, and then Hunter, obviously your closest ally. Talk about Hunter.
He was an all-around player. Maybe not as like good at physical challenges as like Bryce was, or not as like strategic as Garrett was, but he was like a mixture of the two, and he knew what he was doing. I don't know if he was like a huge Survivor fan or anything, but he definitely knew what he was doing, and it was a good person to have in an alliance, because people saw him as the threat more over me, even though we were working together for like everything that we did. It was like a combined thing, but they saw him as a threat over me, so that was good for me, so I could stay in a little longer.
Then talk to me about how, you know, you, Bailey, and Luke, you got out Hunter. That was, I think, a big defining move in the game. Whose idea was it to get out Hunter?
It was definitely, Luke was definitely the mastermind. I was really hesitant because, you know, it should have been a 3-3 tie, but I think we used Austin's, I don't think Austin voted for the person who actually got out, except for maybe me and Bailey. And so, like, besides that, like, we kind of used that to our advantage. That like he doesn't really know what's going on a lot of the time,
he
so
never knew.
yeah, so that really helped. Because like just that I think kind of made you and Luke or you and Hunter wary of him.
Yeah,
Luke
he
used that.
threw that just little doubt in our minds that Austin was gonna swing that and get Hunter. So like, all right, we gotta get Austin. And then it was just like, oh my god. And I like went up to Austin and was like, yeah, it was Hunter and Luke that voted for you because they had a final 2. I was just told at the last second. There were a lot of times in there where I almost like said stuff to him, and I was like, I mean this instead.
All right, then arguably one of the better players in the game, Luke. Talk to me about Luke and how it was to compete against him.
He was the villain of the season. He had the mustache to go with it and everything too, and he was brilliant. He would make you trust him, but he would form many other alliances, and he was just really unpredictable. And so I felt eerie even for a long time, but it's like I want to trust him because he's a great person to be in an alliance with.
Jordan?
And yeah, that's a lot. I think the timing for aligning with Luke was perfect because he had his back against the wall, so he had to put all his trust into Bailey and I. And if he would have came to me before that, I would have been a little more wary of him. But the timing of it was just perfect.
Jordan, what do you think of Jordan's game?
Jordan's game, you laid under the radar for a lot of the time, and then towards the end, you really started to step in and start actually contributing to like the certain votes. We're like, oh, Jordan is actually like first when we merged, we're like, wow,
Jordan's on our side. We can use this. And then later we're like, can we like trust him? Like who is he with? We never knew what you were thinking.
Yeah.
Are you happy with the game you played, Jordan?
Yeah, I mean, I thought a lot about it afterwards, and I think for the like background knowledge of Survivor, which I had, which was none, and like the mindset I had about like playing in the present all the time, I think I went as far as I possibly could have.
And then Bailey, who's someone who, I mean, she was talked about being voted off the second round. It was between Jelks and Bailey, and then she ended up making it to the final 3. And another person who had very little Survivor knowledge. What did you think about Bailey?
Well, Bailey, we almost got her out on the first one too, but then Julie was like, I would rather it be me than Bailey, and so,
Like, I don't know, like you said, like Luke was keeping her in a lot of the time, and I realized once he had like a little alliance with her on Benai, he would be like, well, I like Bailey because of this, or I like Paris because he also had a little thing with Paris too, and so he was feeding stuff into it. But Bailey was also always like very optimistic about things. She's like, if I have to do this, I can, but she's like, but I'll totally do it. And she was having a fun time the whole time, which really like made it a more positive environment to keep her around and everything.
Bailey.
Yeah, she was probably the best person you could possibly align yourself with in Survivor. Like
Super loyal.
Yeah,
super loyal.
She cared about like Luke and I more than herself a lot of times. Like it just destroyed her that she had to vote for me. Like I had to tell her like, well, if it's best for you, I mean like
gunning for me.
Yeah, like I'd love your vote, but like you have to think what's best for you, Bailey.
And then Austin, one vote away from winning. What do you think about Austin?
he was like Jordan as well, even with the feud. I don't know why, but
He was under the radar the whole time, always out of the loop. He never knew what was going on. Like Bryce and Garrett were pretty obvious, but then he didn't know about Bev, didn't know about Hunter, and then Luke, I was telling him, I was like, we're going Luke, I'm giving you this. So then he was like, all right, I guess I have to trust you. And he's like, well, since Brandon did that, everything that I told him, he was like, yeah, that has to be true. And I was like, it's 2-2. If you like betray me, then these two can probably gain up on you. And I was just feeding him stuff the whole time. And he flew under the radar, but you know, towards the end there, he actually competed in the physical challenge and won shuffleboard, which was super close.
Jordan, what do you think? I mean, you had this feud.
Yeah.
It came out of nowhere. Talk about Austin.
Yeah, I mean he's a really nice guy, and like getting to know him in the game, he's really nice to talk to and stuff. But like playing the game, I guess like it's just we didn't understand each other's games.
No.
Like we both were under the radar. I think we're in like the same position most of the time, except for I think like my brain was moving a little faster than his a lot of times. There's a lot of times she was like, yeah, I'll go with the group.
Last but not least, Brandon. Jordan, tell me about how you think Brandon played the game.
He definitely played the best game, which I was happy he won. And yeah, it was just if there's one person to lose to, it definitely be Brandon. And he's always thinking, always had like you always thought about like the jury members, and he played really good of like, well, I don't want to piss these people off. I don't want to piss these people off. He's a really good like ambassador for everyone in the games.
Brandon, talk to me about your game. What do you think you did well? You happy with how
finding the hidden immunity idols was key. That first one in Benai was like crazy hard to find. I walked for like an hour and a half, and finally I was like, I'm done. I can't find this. And I was like, oh, there's this one other rock. Literally, it was like the last rock I was gonna check. And I was like, I'll flip behind this, and I was like, this is huge. And so I like flipped it and broke it, and then I was in there. I was like, oh, and I never knew what to do with it because it was like awkwardly big. And then the one at Kuna, I don't know how nobody found it. 'Cause it was like right next to camp, and I found it in like 2 minutes. But those were key things that, like the twist for Bryce giving it to somebody. I was like, he could give it to Grant, And so I was like, I had to play it, and Garrett was throwing me loaded questions, and he was like, why did you play it then if you were outwitting us? And I was like, just a safety thing, because there were so many twists in that vote off. And then the other one, which went to get out Luke. And I'm glad that I got rid of Luke, and in the end I was happy that, even though that sounds kind of bad, that Hunter got out, because those were the two that I felt that played like equivalent games with me and could have beaten me in the end.
And how was it watching the season online? 'Cause, obviously, like you said, you experienced it. Was there anything that kind of surprised you that you didn't know that went off that was going on at another time when you weren't aware of it?
When it was the vote off of Grant, there was like the word that I had in a hidden immunity idol went around quick, and you were the only one that didn't know.
Oh, really?
Like Grant figured out right away because Garrett told him, Bev told Garrett, I told Bev, and it happened really quick, and I was like, wow, I didn't think that literally everybody knew about that, and so I was like, okay, but that was one thing.
What about you, Jordan?
Well, a lot of it was learning on the fly, so like watching what I knew, or like watching the first, like when it was just Kuna before the tribe switch, I was almost embarrassed by how naive I was, because like after our season I became like a pretty good big Survivor fan. I've watched, I don't know, like 10 seasons since then, and so like going back and seeing like, how did I not see those four made an alliance? How did I not see that?
The bracelets.
How did I not see that if the roles were switched, I would have been out the first day, So there's a lot of just naivety that I saw from Kuna.
I liked being on Benai because like for Kuna, it was all like downtime, relaxing. They never had to strategize. And for Benai, like for some reason, like first, like once we finished our tent, we're like, all right, Forest. And like everybody like made a 2-person alliance. But then like as more people got voted off, it made us like regroup and rethink who we would be with, and it put us strategically further ahead than some of the Kuna people, because they were just like, I haven't had to do this. And we went, like I said, I went to every single tribal council except the one when Skylar went home. So yeah.
To revisit the final tribal council real quickly, some of the comments felt like you were borderline, a little overconfident. Do you feel that you were overconfident and kind of throwing it in the jury's face?
Definitely. Watching it back, like when I said it, some of the things I was like were like, I could have definitely said that better. But then watching it back, I was like, come on, Brandon, you could really convince them. Like some of the people, I guess I couldn't have convinced, like Luke and Garrett, how he said I can always trust a little loyalty. But I figured if I could have talked better, I maybe could have got Bev too. Like some of the things were like, I did this, but I didn't say that I worked with these people to do this, and it was making me seem like I did this all on my own rather than with the help of some other people.
Just kind of briefly talk about your experience overall. Being out there, playing the game, watching it. How was Survivor Rock Creek for you?
Fabulous. It was so much more than I had expected. Like during the last scene in the finale when I was saying like you think you're going in and you're thinking, oh, it's going to be all these things, but then it's those to an even higher level. And we were only out there for 3 days, so I can't even imagine what it would be like for 40 days. But like the location was perfect except for like filming, because the river was really loud at times. But like the location was beautiful, and the camps were at least a decent amount far apart. We had like good areas for challenges, and that was great. And then just the whole game, it made you think, it made you active. I lost 10 pounds in 3 days.
Oh, wow.
That was crazy. Yeah.
Jordan, how was your Survivor Rock Creek experience?
It was really great. It was a lot of fun. Learned a lot of stuff. Met some cool people, and it was a lot more draining than I thought it'd be. I thought 3 days out in the wilderness, it's not going to be that bad. Like you gave us like enough food, I thought, but I thought I was like, oh, I'm gone, you know, a few days without eating a lot, and so I thought, oh, it won't be that bad, but it was pretty bad.
It was pretty bad.
I woke up that third day like shaking. I could I was like slowly walking to the challenge. I was like, oh well, at least it's, you know, not physical, because like physically I was gone. So, but then like I mentally, like, I learned halfway through that challenge, like, I just can't, you know.
Memorize it.
Yeah, I can't. Memory's gone too, so, you know, it's just really draining.
Yeah.
Alrighty, last question. Jordan, if the opportunity presented itself, would you play again?
Yeah, definitely.
Same question, Brandon.
Hands down. If it's like an all-stars, if it's like a heroes versus villains, if it's like fans versus favorites or whatever, I'm down.
Alright. Well, I'd like to personally thank everyone who contributed. A special thanks to Connor Hint, who without him it could not be possible. I'd like to thank all our dedicated fans and loyal fans who watched the season, and we hope to see you next year. Thank you, and thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.